Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AI Agents Hackathon live streams.
The AI Agents Hackathon is a free virtual hackathon running from April 8th to April 30th.
We're hosting over 20 live streams where you'll learn how to build agents using various Microsoft technologies. At the end of the 3 weeks, submit your project for a chance to win fantastic prizes.
And now over to our friends at Reactor.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the AI Agent Hack. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to review our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenters to answer live. Our session is recorded. It will be available to view on demand within 24 to 48 hours. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speakers for today. Thanks for joining.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's session. My name is Gary Trinder. I'm a Microsoft 365 cloud advocate, and I have with me a colleague, Daniel.
Yeah, my name is Daniel Laskwitz, and I'm a Power Platform cloud advocate. So I work mostly with the Power Platform, but I also do some stuff with Microsoft 365 every once in a while.
And today, so we're going to be talking about building declarative agents with two different approaches. So we're going to go through how you can build declarative agents with Copilot Studio, but also VS Code as well. So Daniel's going to take over the Copilot Studio side. I'm going to do the Visual Studio code side. So just to kind of give you a quick run through of what we're going to do in this session. So we're just going to have a quick intro into what is Microsoft 365 Copilot, what are declarative agents, why would you use them, what are the things that you need to know about declarative agents, like how do they work, and then we'll go over the tooling as well, which you can use to build them with. Then we're going to drop into demos as well. So we've got we've got 4 demos. We've got demos in Copilot Studio. We've got demos in VS Code as well. We've also got a demo in Agent Builder. We've got tons of resources that we want to share. And at the end, if you've got any questions, which I highly encourage you to put in the chat, we have moderators who will be picking up the questions, and we can pick those up at the end. So please, if you think of anything, just drop it in there and we'll do our best to answer it. So Microsoft 365 Copilot, what is it? Well, Microsoft 365 Copilot is the intelligent productivity suite in Microsoft 365. You will see this in many different areas in Microsoft 365. We have the Copilot app, but we've also got Copilot within Teams. We've got Copilot in Word, Excel, all those apps that you use in your day-to-day work to bring that intelligence, that natural language intelligence into the products that you use. And the way that it works is it uses large language models behind the scenes to provide that intelligence. It can connect to the internet, so it can do web searches as well. But most importantly, it can connect to your data through Microsoft Graph. And this is what kind of stands Microsoft 365 Copilot apart, is that it's connected directly to your data. So things like your calendar, your emails, the documents that you work with, that's all available within Copilot without actually you having to do anything about that. And as I mentioned, it's available in your Microsoft 365 apps as well. So there is a Copilot in, I think, pretty much every app that we have now. If not, then I'm sure that gap will be filled. To give you an idea about the architecture of what you get with Microsoft 365 Copilot, because we hear a lot of people going, but I can build these things myself, right? I can set up RAG and work on my documents. But you get all this out of the box with Microsoft 365 Copilot. You get a lot of compliance and security and a lot of responsible AI features as well baked in. It's part of the service. So these are things that you don't have to think about and consider when you're needing to use Copilot, because you get all the best practices and defaults as part of the system. And again, you get those connections with Graph as well. So they just happen when you're sending prompts. Copilot is understanding what you're trying to achieve, what documents you need to look at, and then use that context as part of its answer. But also it gives you the ability to extend as well, and extend to systems outside of this Copilot boundary as well, which is what we're going to get in today around extending. So that's the question, right? Why would you want to extend? Copilot, there's a lot of things out of the box. Like we already mentioned, it can connect to Graph. It can get all of our company data. Well, we know that in a real world, not all companies have all their data in Microsoft 365. It's scattered across different systems, right? So you got to think of, well, what if the data isn't in M365? And what actually if we want to focus on specific data, like, hey, we know where this data is, this authoritative data, maybe we've got knowledge base articles, that we just want to look at those documents and use those documents as part of the reasoning process that Copilot will go into when it receives a prompt. What if we want to focus and be narrow rather than searching the whole of our organization's data? And how do we optimize Copilot for a specific task as well? And this is where declarative agents come in. So declarative agents, so these are agents in Microsoft 365 Copilot, and they're optimized for a specific scenario and task. So think things of like maybe customer support scenario, maybe product support scenario, where you've got documents that you want to reason over and use that information. You don't want to pull information from all sorts of different sources. You know where that data is. So they work based on two things we're going to keep in mind: custom knowledge and custom actions. And we'll delve into these a little bit more as we go through it into the demos. But if you think about custom knowledge as how our agent behaves, so how does it respond? What kind of tone of language does it use? And also what data sources it can access in Microsoft 365 as well. Like, where is the data that it's going to use? And we've got these things called custom actions as well. And these custom actions are a way for us to reach out into external systems. So this is maybe like, okay, I've got a database and I've got some data in there that I want to use. Maybe in our customer support scenario, it might be a ticketing system, right? We want to manage tickets. We want to get the latest updates on those tickets. We can use custom actions to get out of the Copilot boundary and bring that data back in. So when to use declarative agents? So when you've got a clear scenario, you're thinking of something in mind, a specific agent to perform a specific task. One key thing is that the orchestrator and model and the responsible AI controls that I showed in the architecture at the beginning, those are provided for you, and you extend Copilot. So your agents are going to use that same infrastructure as well. So if that is suitable for the scenario that you're using, you don't need anything custom. You don't need maybe the newest model, the newest kind of techniques for bringing context and documents into your agent. Then using a declarative agent is a great fit. And also, if your grounding data is in Microsoft 365 already, you've got things in SharePoint, you've got things in OneDrive, maybe things in Teams, you can use those as well. But there are options. If that data isn't in M365, you can use graph connectors and custom actions, which we'll go into in a little bit more detail. So let's break a declarative agent down into its individual components. And there's 4 components that we're going to talk about as we go through the different demos. There's different ways of implementing these based on the tool that you choose, but all 4 of them still apply. So first we have instructions. So the instructions that you give your agent, it's just text, but this can determine the behavior and the responses from your agent. So like, what do you want it to do? How do you want it to behave? How do you want the answers that it gives to be shaped? Like, perfect example is, hey, you're reasoning over technical documents and you want to make them easier for people who are non-technical to understand. So as part of your instructions, you can say, hey, use plain English, don't use jargon, those kind of things. You're determining the output. And a good way of thinking about this is like, think of this as the agent system prompt as well. Next is capabilities. And when I think capabilities, it's two things. So first, it's the grounding data sources. So things like SharePoint, OneDrive, web search, where you can go and Copilot can reason over these data sources. And another capability is a kind of behavior, but it's like, can the agent generate code? Can it generate images as well? Those are extra capabilities that you can give to your agent as well. You've got conversation starters, so dead simple. These are just the starting prompts that the users of your agent could use. Then they show up at the beginning. It's a good way to kind of show, what can this agent do? What are its main use cases? So you can define those as well. And finally, the actions, and we talked about this. This is a way that your declarative agent can communicate with an external system and communicate in real time as well. So Copilot will make the request to get that data with the based on the prompt that the user has entered. Okay, so let's get on to the tooling. And now I'm going to hand over to Daniel, who's going to go through these three options.
Yeah, thanks, Gary, for the intro. When we talk about tools, we have multiple tools to create declarative agents. We have the agent builder, which is a way to kind of create those declarative agents from inside of the Copilot experiences. Next, we have Copilot Studio, which is a SaaS product that we have to create agents, and you can also create declarative agents from there. And next, we also have Visual Studio Code, where you can do the more pro code approach, where you will create a declarative agent from Visual Studio Code. And that's the part that Gary will show you later. I'm going to talk about the agent builder and Copilot Studio for now. So let's go into the agent builder. And that's the next slide, Gary. So here we go. We have the Microsoft 365 Copilot Agent Builder. And that's basically where you can go into Microsoft 365 Copilot and you can click on create an agent. And then you will see the pop-up that you see on the right side in the screenshot. And that's where you can start creating your agent. You can pick one of the templates that's already available, or you can even chat to Copilot Studio, the agent builder, and then it will enter all the details in there. So it will figure out a name, it will figure out description, instructions, and then it will be able to create your agent. You can also kind of create it yourself, so you can enter all the details yourself. And what you can do there is you can, of course, insert instructions. You can enter all the knowledge in there. So you can enter the SharePoint files that you want to add, SharePoint sites that you want to add. You can add graph connectors. You can add websites even. You can enable web search. And of course, the capabilities that Gary also just named are also available there. So you can use code interpreter or the image generation options in there as well. And of course, we have the starter prompts in there as well. For now, there is not an option for us to create actions in here. And that's something that a lot of people want to do. You have to go to Copilot Studio right now for that. And that's what I'm also going to demo later. But let's go into a demo to create a declarative agent with Agent Builder. And I already have a demo prepared in my screen. So there we go. So what I have in front of me now is I went to office.com/chat, and that will open up this page. And what you can do here is you can, of course, start chatting with Microsoft 365 Copilot. But on the right side, and that's the part where I was just talking about, you have a button to create an agent. And when you click on that, you will see the agent builder. And this is basically the part where I was talking about. So what we can do here is we can start chatting with the agent builder. And then we can describe what our agent should do, and it will automatically create instructions out of that, and a description and a name of the agent. And as you can see, you can switch between describe and configure. So you have describe here, where you can type and you can talk to the agent builder, but you can also click on configure, and there you can just go through all the details. So you can add the name, you can change the icon if you want to, you can add the description, the instructions. Here you can see all the knowledge. So what you can do here is you can enter a public website, SharePoint site, etc. In there, you can enable web search if you want to, you can enable the capabilities, and you can add some starter prompts here. As I said, the actions aren't yet available inside of the agent builder, but they will come later. But what's also really cool here is that you can start with a template. And there are already a bunch of templates available here. And what we can see here, for instance, is that we can click on Career Coach. That's the first template that we have here. And if all goes well, it should load all the all the details of the Career Coach. And what we can see now is that we have an icon here of the Career Coach, a name, a description. If we scroll down a little bit more, we have a whole instructions already typed out. And this is something that you can really use to kind of get a feeling about how you need to write for these different agents. So there are a lot of good examples in here. So when people start building declarative agents in the agent builder, I always tell them, just try out the templates and then go on from there, because it gives you a lot of ideas about how you should describe the instructions, for instance. And then you can, of course, add all the things to it if you want to. You can see already that there are a whole bunch of starter prompts available here. And those are also available here to the side. And this is basically the place where you can test out your declarative agent already. So when you are configuring this whole declarative agent, you're already also able to start chatting to it and try out and kind of iterate through all your changes that you want to do for this agent. In this case, I have one of the starting prompts here. So I can, for instance, click on networking strategies, and then it will enter one of the starter prompts in there. So how can I leverage my professional network to help? And when I send that, it will start responding with the knowledge of the LLM that's behind this. So here I can see a whole answer about how to network. Basically, that's the whole thing here. When you are done, you can already click create, for instance, and then it will start creating your agent. And then it shouldn't take that long. It always does when you're demoing, right? And then you can already select go to agent, for instance, and then it should load it. And here we are in the Copilot for Microsoft 365, where we have the career coach available here. And I can, for instance, click on the same thing and send it. And this is how it really works in the Microsoft 365 Copilot. So this was a really brief tour about how you can kind of create a declarative agent, a really simple one, and how you can go through that to create that. So let's move back to the slides and continue a little bit more with the Copilot Studio side, because I want to talk a little bit about that as well. There is a lot the same here, with the exception of the last part. So what you can do here is you can add the actions also to it. And the actions are for declarative agents, basically where you can connect to backend services. So the option that you have there is, for instance, to talk to all kinds of the connectors that we have in the Power Platform, and connectors are ways to talk to backend systems. So connectors could be, for instance, SharePoint, it can be ServiceNow, it can be a whole bunch of different services that we have in the world. And you can even create your custom connector if you wanted to talk to your own API, if you have that. So for that, I also have a demo available. So let's switch to my screen again to show you how to create an agent from here, and also start working also with the actions. So when you go to copilotstudio.microsoft.com, you will come into the homepage, basically, where you can start creating your own agent. This is a custom agent. It's not the declarative agent. For the declarative agents, you need to go to the Copilot for Microsoft 365. And when you click on that, it will open the experience here where we can add agents, for instance. So here I can click on add, and this should feel a little bit familiar because we have a chat here where we can talk to Copilot Studio and talk about what we want to make, for instance, as a declarative agent. In this case, I'm going to skip to configure. And when I do this, it's kind of the same as describe and configure what we had. So in this case, now I am in the configure part where we can, for instance, give our agent a name. So let's add a name here. And Gary and I are both into food, I think, because there's some demo coming later on as well about food. In this case, I'm going to talk about an agent called Barbecue Boss, your grilling guide. And this is basically a kind of a fun declarative agent that I thought of. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just add the name. I'm going to add a description. So when I add that, at the right side, you can also see that there is like a summary of what I entered in the middle. So what I can do now is I can also add instructions if I want to. So here's a whole bunch of instructions that I have here. I can start adding starter prompts. So here we have a whole bunch of starter prompts that we can add. So let's add a bunch of starter prompts here, and you have to add the title and prompt in there. So when I enter all these prompts, I'm really happy that I configured everything beforehand so that I don't have to type everything out, because that would never have happened in a very good way. So I just thought of a bunch of those starter prompts, so I can save them, for instance. And here we can see now that I have a whole bunch of starter prompts available. And what happened now is also that I can create now, because without the starter prompt, you're not able to create it. And in this case, I kind of want to do that. So I'm going to click on create. And this will always take a little longer than you hope when you're demoing, but it normally takes a couple of seconds before it is loaded.
Provisioning live, you're brave.
Yeah. I'm always trying out. I have a backup, but we have the agent now available here. And what you can see on the side, again, you can see the test your agent part. This is basically the same a bit, where you have on the left side what you can configure, and on the right side you can start chatting with it. So I can already start chatting about, for instance, what essential tools do I need to start backyard smoking on a budget. And then it will already go through the whole LLM, and it will look for a lot of tools that we can have for barbecuing. But this is something I already showed you. This is not something really new, because I just showed you on the career agent basically how you can talk to the LLM. But the cool part is right here. And what we can see here is we can see actions. And here I can add an action. And when I click on that, I get a couple of actions that I can see. And I can also search for actions. So I can, for instance, look for MSN weather. And when I look for that, I can already see a bunch of actions of the MSM weather connector. And what I can do now is, for instance, I can add an action to this agent to talk about the weather, because when you're barbecuing, you, of course, or when you want to barbecue, you always want to know what the weather is like, for instance, or you want to get the forecast. So it's good to have some kind of connection to those kinds of services in there. So let's just click on the get current weather in this case. And when you click on that, the Power Platform always needs that connection to the backend source. And in this case, it is a backend system that doesn't need authentication, but sometimes you have a backend service that needs authentication, and then you need to, if it doesn't have single sign-on, you have to create it in here. You have to add your details in there. But this connection is for my testing right now, just for trying out. And later on, I will talk a little bit more about that. So let's go next here. And here we can already see that part. What we can see here is that we have a name for it and a description. This is really important, because when you write these descriptions, you can influence the declarative agent on when to trigger this action. So you need to be really precise about these descriptions. You need to make sure that it will trigger on the right conditions, basically. So make sure that you write a good description and a good name. The other thing here is we have user authentication. And this comes back to the connection that we were just talking about. We added the connection that you just saw. But this thing here, the user authentication, means that when I add this action, every user of that agent needs to authenticate. And we'll see that in a little bit as well. Here, I also have some other options. I can add inputs and outputs, for instance, and I can see all those in here. And I can also add some response settings on how to interact with this, for instance. In this case, I'm going to leave everything the same, and I'm going to add this action. So when I do this, it will add the action to the declarative agent, and it will make it available. And you can already see here that we have that connector available here. So we have the get current weather action of that connector. We have that available. So let me refresh the testing pane. And now we're going to try it out, of course. So I want to ask a question. What's the current weather in Utrecht, the Netherlands? That's the place where I'm in. Is it good barbecue weather? And when I do that, it will send it, and it will probably give us an error. There we go. And this is the thing that I was talking about. This is the user authentication, because every time you run this, or the first time you run this, you have to add a connection for this agent, because it needs to connect on the user behalf. So when I click on connect here, it will open another window, and here I can manage my connections. So for the MSM weather connector, I need to click on connect, and it will add the connection, and then I can click on submit, and then with a couple of seconds it should say connected. And now we have the connection available in this agent. So when I close this window, I can now, for instance, refresh it again, and then I can ask the question, what's the current weather in Utrecht, the Netherlands? Is it good barbecue weather? And now it should come back with a response without asking me to connect. So that's always the charm of a demo. Let's see if it's going to work. There we go. And it's already a degree higher than it was a couple of hours ago when I was testing this. And what we can see here is that, it's saying that the current weather in Utrecht is cloudy with a temperature of 12 degrees Celsius. And there are a bunch of extra things here about, like, for barbecue weather, it's a bit cloudy and cool, etc., etc., etc. So this is kind of how you can incorporate that also in your declarative agents. And that was the end of my demo. So we can switch back to the slides. And then, Gary, you can talk about all the Visual Studio Code goodness.
I can, yes. I'm glad I've already had lunch because we're going to be talking about food quite a bit. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all good. Okay, so we've seen Agent Builder, we've seen Copilot Studio, we've seen how you can build declarative agents, instructions, knowledge, and actions as well, and the start prompts, the 4 things which I mentioned right at the very beginning. So Visual Studio Code now. So in Visual Studio Code, we have an extension called Teams Toolkit. That sounds very strange because we're doing things in Microsoft 365 Copilot, but I'll explain that in a little while when we get into VS Code. But this extension provides us with project templates, a nice, easy way to scaffold a project that is a declarative agent. And it's got different options based on what you want to do, whether you want a basic agent, whether you want an agent that has an action as well. Maybe that action has authentication you need to think about. So there's templates that basically help you build these agents. But the key thing here is there's no UI, right? Everything that Daniel has shown so far is kind of clicking around it in the user interface and building things. Here, we are building agents with JSON. We are defining the behaviors and its capabilities in code. And we provision it from VS Code as well. Now, there's pros and cons of those approaches. One of the pros is you get to see everything. And you're not bound by the user interface as well. And I'll show you that as well, where there's some extra capabilities, which I can show you in VS Code, which is not quite yet there in Copilot Studio because of just the way that the systems are built. We've got extra things as well in VS Code where we have automation and we can do things like injecting environment variables into our declarative agents as well. So if you need to repeat or create a bulk of these agents and you just want to swap out some maybe URLs, those kind of things, like if you're moving from dev to test to production, you've got different URLs, you can kind of put those into environment variables as well. So let's go straight on to a demo. So the code that I'm going to show in this demo, the QR code here will take you to a sample repository in GitHub, so you can try this for yourself as well. But before I get into this demo, I'm going to show you Teams Toolkit and how you can get that installed, and then how you can create your first app as well. So let's move to VS Code. So I'm in VS Code, and I mentioned that there's an extension called Teams Toolkit, and I've already installed this. Reason why we're using something called Teams Toolkit is because what we're going to build is effectively a Teams app that we provision into M365, which shows up in Copilot. So if you've ever done Teams development in the past, things like building app packages, it's the same thing what we're doing really here. We're basically creating an agent that's wrapped in an app package, a zip file, which we then upload into M365, and then that is available for you to use, and then you can publish that to an organization catalog and pass that, publish that out to the rest of your organization as well. So when you've installed Teams Toolkit, you get this little pane on the left-hand side, and we can then go through the wizard to create a new app. So first option that we have is Declarative Agent, and we have a choice. Do we want an action with this or do we not? I'm just going to go with no action at the moment. I'm going to choose a default. And I can just do declarative agent test, and that would be the name of my declarative agent. So I'm just going to open this. I'm going to show you that's how quick it was to provision it. And it creates this folder structure with a folder called app package. And now this is where we define our agent. We have a manifest file here, which basically tells M365, hey, this is an app, and this app has some capabilities. And we have this Copilot agent node here, which says there's a declarative agent with a pointer to a file, and that file describes our declarative agent capabilities. If I go to this, it's very simple. We just get a version number, the name that I gave it, a description, again, kind of important for our end users know what it is, and we have instructions as well. Now, instructions is just a text file. And if I just make that a little bit bigger, you can see that this is the instruction. So if I provisioned this agent into Copilot and I sent a prompt, I would always get the answer, "Thanks for using Teams Toolkit." Now, with this being a text file, you can make it. You can go quite long, quite complicated in here, and you can see it in the text as well. So the idea is that when you provision, the contents of this file gets injected into this placeholder here. So this function here is provided by Teams Toolkit. It just makes it a little bit easier when this file gets bigger. And you'll see that in the next demo that I show when we have extra things in there. So at the moment, it looks a little bit weird, but it is worthwhile to have. We got other things in here like the icons as well, so a color image and outline image. And these are all defined in the app manifest as well. Now, let's say I've worked on my agent and I want to get this into Copilot. Then what I can do is come to this option down here called Lifecycle, hit provision, and the automation then would handle that and do the upload for me. It would package the agent for me, upload it, and then I'd be able to use it. And you can see up here on the left, on the account section, I'm already logged into M365 as well. So you sign into your Microsoft 365 tenant through Teams Toolkit, and then it works on your behalf to do those features, those uploads. And if you get anything wrong as well, you add things in here, maybe that you shouldn't. So there are responsible AI checks that happen at this stage as well. So there's validation that happens when you try to provision. It will check the instructions that you've got in there and say, oh, hang on, you've actually violated the policy. We're not going to allow you to upload this as well. So there's some inbuilt validation as well to keep in mind when you're actually building these agents out and then you're pushing them into Copilot. So that's a really basic example. Let's now look at our demo. And here is a project that I've already created, and this is for a project support scenario. So you can see it's exactly the same structure. We've got our declarative agent JSON file, and this defines the capabilities of our agent. If I expand capabilities, you'll see we have this one node here. And this basically means that, hey, this agent is able to use content in OneDrive and SharePoint based on a specific URL. Now, I don't have my URL in there, but you can imagine if I came in and did like Contoso, Copilot has just put that in for me. What it would do is this would say, hey, okay, I've got a data source that I can use as part of my reasoning, but only a specific file. It will only read that file. But let's say I wanted to go wider and said, well, hang on, I know that I've got a library with a lot of documents in there. I could go to put the URL in there that would be shared documents, and the scope would then be all documents within that library. So you can configure this in many different ways. We can have different capabilities in here as well. So one thing which I can show you, if I define a capability in here we go. Here are the options that I have when I'm in VS Code. So we have the code interpreter, which was the ability for this agent to generate code, and graphic art, which is its ability to generate images. But we have data sources as well. So we have Dataverse, email, graph connectors, OneDrive and SharePoint, which I've already shown you, people data source, Teams messages as well. So you could bring in context from messages that you have, conversations in channels, one-to-one chats. You could basically get a URL that points to that chat and then use that as context that your agent can use. And we've also got web search as well, which in web search, we could have it across all of the web, get any article, or we could scope it down to a specific site as well. So you can do things like that and kind of narrow down the the content that's available to be reasoned over in that data source. So here we define how we would use SharePoint or OneDrive as a data source, and we have our conversation starters as well. They're simple, kind of similar to what Daniel was showing in Copilot Studio as well. It's a simple title and text. So based on this, if I go to the instructions as well, if I go into instructions, so our instructions are a little bit different because we are, I'll scroll across. Yeah, there you go. So your product support, your designed to answer customer queries about Contoso Electronics products. You'll use documents from OneDrive. If you can't find the necessary information, you should suggest that people should reach out to the responsible team. Now, we were on about best practice kind of earlier. This is one of the good ones, is like, make sure there's an out. Like, if you can't provide the answers, then like get your agent say, hey, I don't know, because otherwise it can just like make things up. So kind of have that as a backup in your instructions. And another good way of making sure that you get good answers is to say, hey, your responses should always cite a source. If you can't cite a source, then why should I trust it? And then you've got the fallback then of, well, if it can't cite a source, then it can't know. And then the instructions are saying, hey, if you don't know, fall back to, asking a responsible team. So let's go into Copilot here. If we go to here. So on the right-hand side, we've got the product support agent. We've got some conversation starters. Let's say, tell me about Eagle Air. And let's see what it comes back with. Oh, that was not a good start. Let's try that one again. Demos. There we go. It works. So you can see it's already starting to pull some information from here, from our document, and we can see that we can click on the document, and this is the document where the content is stored. So it's pretty much pulled everything out. It's kind of almost printed the whole document because it's quite short. This document is held in my OneDrive, and this is the data source that I've used. So basically, I've come into OneDrive. If I expand this now. Side details did not expand. Let's try that again. It's like I can come into here, I can get my path for this particular folder. I can add that into my instructions, into my declarative agent capability, and then it would be narrowed down to just this scope of these documents. And that's what I did for this one here. So we've got some information back. We've cited the document. That's all great. We can do things like compare Eagle Air and another one, another product. So Contoso Quad. Give me your answer in a table. Okay, cool. So now we've got a different response, but it's using the same context, and we're able to compare the content of two different documents, and it's cited as well. So we've got Contoso Quad, which is in here, and that is the document where it's got this information from as well. So it's a nice, easy way being able to create a support agent, really. If you've got information on knowledge base articles, products, specifications, things like that, and you want to do quick comparisons, and maybe we've got a question from a customer, like, hey, recommend a product suitable for a farmer. Let's try that one. We can use the power of Copilot to reason over our documents and then provide us with an answer. There we go. So it's actually providing an answer for suggesting that, hey, Eagle Air is the best one, based on these products that we have as well. So it's a different way of thinking about, like, how can we use the corpus of information that we've already got in our Microsoft 365 tenant. Okay, let's move on to a little bit more of a complex example, and this is including an action. So I've got another project here, similar again, declarative agent JSON file, but in here we have an action defined. And in our AI plugin JSON file, which is again in the app package, this defines our action. And this action is what we call API plugin in VS Code, where we are helping the declarative agent understand that it has an action that it can use to call out to an external API and get a response and use that in its context. So that's what we call an action when we're working in VS Code. We've got things in here like descriptions. Daniel mentioned this before. Descriptions are really, really important. You need to really get used to writing descriptions, because Copilot has to infer from the user prompt which is the best action to then take. So description for model, for example, to help Copilot go, oh, yeah, this is the right action that I need. And then it can go down and say, okay, well, now I've got the right action. What can this action do? And there'll be more descriptions that will define the functions of our action. So a key thing here is, how does Copilot know about the API that where our data is stored? And the way that we do this is through this runtime array and the spec. And what we mean by a spec is we mean an open API spec that describes our API. So this open API spec describes an API that I'm actually running locally, but this could be anywhere. This could be a third-party API. It could be, a SaaS provider that we're using. Just an API that we need to say, hey, here are the endpoints that are available and what they are used for. So we've got things like getting dishes, for example, and an operation ID, and the description, retrieve a list of dishes, and here are the parameters that this API can take in. Remember, Copilot is going to need to understand what these are. So the descriptions are important, because Copilot is going to take information from our prompt and go, oh, I need to send this value in this parameter to this API to get a response. And we've also got an endpoint for orders as well. So not only retrieving data, we can also post data back as well and do updates. Again, similar in that we are defining what the body is and giving descriptions for each part of the data that needs to be sent, so that Copilot can understand what it needs to send so that the request is successful. We've also got a response as well. We go back to the API plugin. We've got an array called functions, and now this is where we map the agent, the action to our API. So if we come into here, we've got a function called get dishes, which maps to the get dishes operation ID in the spec. Again, we have a description of what this thing actually does, but we also have some extra information here in that how can we map the data that comes back from the API and then present that as well. So we have a template of which we can define an adaptive card. An adaptive card is a way that we can then render some of this data that comes back from our API in a nice way in Copilot. So in this case, it's getting dishes for like the lunch menu, and this card defines a single item on that menu, so it is replicated for each one. So things like its description, what allergens it has, its price, all that kind of stuff is then rendered for us as citations. And we also have another function which is around placing orders as well. So, hey, we've placed an order, we've done a post, we're getting some information back from the API. We're going to represent that in Copilot as well. And again, we're using an adaptive card there as well. Extra capabilities, yeah, we could have some conversation starters there. I think they've now disappeared, so we don't actually need those. But let's move on and let's jump into the demo and let's actually show you it running. So I have my agent here called Il Ristorante. I'm going to ask what's for lunch today. There we go. So we've had a response. This is called our API that's running in the background, and we have our citations. And here is our adaptive card that we defined in that action. We can change this however we like because it's an adaptive card. We can render different things, but obviously we can render images in there. That's quite nice. We've also, so we've got lunch and we've got beverage suggestions. Now it's asking, okay, I'd like to place an order. Okay, so let's have I'll have the crazy salad and iced tea. Let's see what happens here. Okay, so Copilot is then saying, okay, I know how to connect to this API and I'm going to send some data. Are you happy with me sending some data? So there's a bit of a kind of a user a prompt here. So we can see, yep, caprese salad, I just want one, and I want one iced tea as well. I'm going to confirm that. So now it's going to send the request over to the API and get a response. And we have our adaptive card that comes back as well to say, yep, your order for caprese salad and the iced tea has been confirmed. Here's the price, and here's the adaptive card that was defined in the action to render it as a result. Now, you might think, well, why is this showing the card in line and it's not a citation? Well, if Copilot gets one item back from an action, it will always render it in line. If it gets more than one, it will always render it as a citation. So just keep that in mind as well. One thing which I do want to show you as well, and this is kind of the things working in the background, there is a way to turn on developer mode where you can do -developer on. I'd already enabled this so you can see what's going on in the background. So we can see in here when the prompt was sent, Copilot was looking for the right endpoint, and it went, the right function, sorry. And it was like, hey, I've got two functions here. Which one do I need to choose? And based on the description, then it made the right choice to say, yeah, I want to get dishes. I don't want to place an order. So it gave us that information here. And we can also see a little bit more details as well, where we can look at the response data that came back from the API as well. And this is what Copilot then was able to take into the context to then generate its response to the citations and all that good stuff. And in the same way, again, we've got the place order here that it ignored get dishes, did place order, it picked out that function, and then the request as well that was sent. So this was a post request, and this was the payload that was sent as well. So that is VS Code building declarative agents just to acknowledge and instructions, and also building them with an API plugin as well through Teams Toolkit. So if we go back to our slides, well, we've already done that one. I'll leave that on there for a second. So the QR code for the Il Ristorante sample is there. Again, that's in GitHub. You'll be able to use that on your own tenant as well. So we have tons of resources as well that's available. So we've got the Microsoft 365 Copilot extensibility documentation. So this covers both Agent Builder, Copilot Studio, and VS Code as well. So you'll get all the information in there, and you get some good best practices as well, and a lot of things that covers a lot of things that we've talked about today. We have the Microsoft 365 Copilot extensibility training. So this is a collection on Microsoft Learn. This is more focused on the VS Code side. That it will go into more detail about building declarative agents in VS Code, API plugins. We go deep into authentication as well, which I didn't show. So I showed an API plugin that used just anonymous authentication. That's never going to happen in the real world, especially in your organizations. But it goes into the the authentication methods that are supported as well. So API keys and SSO as well. So you have those details. We have Copilot Developer Camp. Again, more training content. This covers both Copilot Studio and VS Code as well. Community samples. So we have a huge quantity of Copilot samples in our adoption gallery as well. So definitely check that out and tick the Microsoft 365 Copilot filter on there and you'll get all the different samples. And we also have the slides available. I think we had a question about the QR code as well. So if you go to the presentation slides AKMS link, you'll be able to get the QR codes from there as well. And just a reminder that the Agents Hack is still going as well. So if you've not got a next session lined up, definitely take a look through the catalog. Go to aka.ms/Agents Hack, and you'll find all the details there. And with that, Daniel, do you want to add anything extra?
No, I've seen a lot of questions in the chat already, so I've been answering a lot of those already. So there were a lot of questions from everybody, which was really cool to see. I think we got everything covered now. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just having a quick skim through the questions whilst I was doing the demo.
Yeah, someone asked for the QR code, but I also sent a link to the slides for the YouTube.
So there is a good question from Steve, actually, Steve Harris. Why would you use this approach over Azure AI, Agent Service, and Semantic Kernel? Are they addressing different use cases? Well, I would argue yes. So there are two different ways that you can create agents. The way that we've been talking about at the moment is simply reusing what you already have. So if you've already got M365 Copilot licenses in your organization, you're already using it, then I would say the easiest way to reuse all of that good stuff that's being paid for in your license, all the infrastructure, the models, the compliance, the security, the responsible AI controls. This is a great way of extending. Now, there are limitations to this approach. So there are certain points when maybe you might need something that's more custom. But for I'd say general use cases, I think it stands up pretty well. But yeah, always keep that in mind is that there's different approaches that you can take. You could go full custom, like you say, use Azure AI Agent Service, Semantic Kernel, code everything yourself, because you need that level of control. The other side of the coin is by having all that control, you then have a lot more responsibility as well. So, make sure that if you are building something custom, that you are putting things in there that, you are putting responsible AI checks in there, using different services in Azure as well, that you've got your security tightened with that as well. So I see that, yes, you can go and build the custom solutions using, Azure and Semantic Kernel, but just keep that in mind that there's maybe a lot more other things that you also need to think about that Copilot is already doing outside of the box. But yeah, two different ways to attack the same problem. I would say give declarative agents a try and learn, whether the scenario that you're trying to work out is Copilot, what it gives you, good enough for that scenario, and then investigate rather than jumping straight down into the custom route. Let's see what else. A VS Code declarative agent, can we ask it to deploy into a dev environment? Yes. So yeah, because it's the account that you're connected in VS Code with. So if you had an account for a a dev tenant, then you could provision straight into that. There's also a lot of CI/CD capabilities with Teams Toolkit as well. Maybe you want to check out the docs of that as well, so that you can deploy into different environments from your source control as well. So that might be something to take a look at in the documentation. I think that's it, which is great because we've got 1 minute left.
Good timing.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think we are.
Right, in that case, I think we'll close up. So, so thank you very much for everyone that has asked questions. Put them in the chat. We'll still have a quick look through and answer them if we've missed any. But yeah, thanks for being with us. Just say thank you for myself and Daniel.
Thank you.
Have a good one, folks.
Hi, everyone. Hope you enjoyed today's session. If you aren't registered for the AI Agents Hackathon yet, register now at aka.ms/agentshack and start hacking on the agent of your dreams.
And if you have any questions along the way, just post in our GitHub discussion forum or attend our live office hours in Discord. And of course, make sure that you keep attending the live streams to keep learning about agents.
Once your project is ready, submit it before April 30th at 11:59 p.m. PT to be eligible for our prizes. Thanks for joining.